This is Part 2 Episode 116. If one wished to cross provinces and head for the distance, one had to borrow the transport formations of a few enormous cities, or else this tremendous distance would leave anyone feeling dizzy. Shi Hao paid a piece of precious material he brought with him from the lower realm. It could be said that his expenditure was great. Then, only after a few days did he ascend an ancient transport formation, and follow a group of cultivators, through the void towards Five-Phase Province. If one wanted to cross provinces, it was extremely difficult. The expenditure for using these transport formations alone was already something normal people couldn't endure. Then, he entered a few more formations in this province and traveled a few more times. He finally found Immortal Mountain, and began to close in on it. I'll cultivate while I search for grandfather. This was the decision he came to. During this process, Silver entered a state of sleep. Its body was shining inside, flickering with all types of symbols as if it was recovering. Shi Hao placed it into his heaven and earth pouch. The Qin clan is extraordinary after all, actually producing such an exceptional youth. For one person to possess two immortal bones, sweeping through everyone in the same cultivation realm and powering through all opponents. During this year, Qin Hao's power shook all of Five Elements province, looking down all opponents in the same level and overlooking the world. In a confrontation at the same cultivation realm, no one could even trade more than 3 blows with him. Rumors have it that one of his immortal bones came from the lower realm, that it belonged to his older brother. I wonder if this is true or false. Lower your voice. This type of thing cannot be randomly talked about. There are some people that have been warned and lashed out at by Immortal Mountain. There are some who even lost their lives because of this. Shi Hao was somewhat speechless. It seems like Immortal Mountain was wiping away his traces, not wishing for Qin Hao's brilliance to be tainted by his shadow and hiding his name. The day will come when you will show them all with the greatest accomplishments. You returned, and even though you don't have a supreme being bone anymore, you can still reign supreme among your peers, said the divine striking stone, expressing its discontent. A few people continued to discuss this, but they no longer talked about the background of one of Qin Hao's true bones. Shi Hao was calm. What their discussions, he understood a bit more about Immortal Mountain. Immortal Mountain was a powerful colossus. This province was definitely their domain. Even though Shi Hao wanted to pry out more details, he had to act carefully. Otherwise, if someone found out that there was someone trying to pry into Immortal Mountain, there would definitely be a great disaster. He used an entire half-month of time, using all types of methods before obtaining a bit of valuable information. It left him greatly shaken. When someone was talking about Immortal Mountain, they mentioned Xiaoling. When he entered the higher realms, he stirred up great chaos, wreaking havoc in Immortal Mountain. He was incomparably furious. When Shi Hao heard this information, he immediately felt a wave of nervousness inside. He felt extremely uneasy. Why would Xiaoling dare to cause trouble in Immortal Mountain? He couldn't help but ask. Rumors has it that he came from the lower realm, and that he is Qin Hao's father. If it wasn't him and someone else that stirred up trouble, they would have immediately been killed, someone said. Continuing the explanation, Shi Hao listened without interrupting. After Xiaoling caused havoc in Immortal Mountain, quite a few people accompanied him. They headed for Fiend Island in search of something, but they ended up returning dejectedly. When he heard this, Shi Hao's heart thumped. He clenched his fists tightly. He already understood that Fiend Island was divided into 2 parts. Half of it was a dangerous area, while the other half was a prison that locked up many experts and vicious fiends. Shi Hao immediately made the association. Then, his blood began to boil and anger surged. He clenched his fists tightly and said with a trembling voice, "Where is grandfather?" In addition, he never expected Xiaoling would act out and head there. Grandfather, a man. Shi Hao's heart was shaking and tears almost flew out. He turned around and left the enormous city. He ran alone through the mountains while roaring loudly. Grandfather, a man, you all have to be okay. Shi Hao shouted loudly. The blood in his body was burning, and he couldn't prevent his tears from flowing down. Through clenched teeth, he said, Immortal Mountain, Qin clan, I am not finished with you all. Grandpa 15 had a special place in his heart. Even though they had been separated a long time ago, he was like Stone Village's chief Shi Yunfeng, one of the most important people in his heart. He was irreplaceable. It was because he knew that his grandfather was truly good to him. All of that was for his sake. Grandfather, where are you? Shi Hao's eyes poured down hot tears. He was incomparably worried. He felt an incredible hatred towards Immortal Mountain. I cannot use the name Shi Hao right now. From today on, I will be called Huang Qian. Even if it is the higher realms, I will still move unhindered. I must quickly rise up. Shi Hao vowed. He came from the wasteland region. Previously, he had used the name Hao Qian, and now that he came into the higher realms, he decided to use the name Huang Qian. He was going to sweep through all of his enemies. Even though Shi Hao felt discontent inside, he still felt that his own grandfather should be alive. Though Shi Xiling didn't find him and was ultimately disappointed, he didn't give up all hope. This answered a few of his problems. Grandfather, a man, all of you need to take care of yourselves. I will find all of you soon. Shi Hao muttered while full of emotions. Shi Hao prepared to head for Fiend Island. Before setting off, there was a bit of investigating he had to do first. He had to first look into a few rumors and then ask others. Then, he intentionally purchased all types of bone books with recordings of Fiend Island to understand it better. That place is extremely dangerous. Even though it contains great opportunities, 80% of the people that go there die. This was inside a majestic enormous city. A grey-haired elder that was guarding the transport formation spoke. His appearance was thin, and his gaze indistinct. He looked at everyone and carried out this type of warning. Fiend Island, even though this place was inside of Five Elements province, it was situated on the border, making it extremely far from the central region. If one wanted to head there, they had to draw support from this type of complex and mysterious enormous transport formation. Meanwhile, this type of super transport formation that could cross provinces were things only a few great sects could possess. This one was a faint green in color, formed from some strange stones. There were all types of complex and mysterious symbols engraved on its surface. It was even activated with a primordial precious bone. It swirled with mysterious power. The altar shone. A golden beast bone was the first to break apart. Then, two purple bird bones split apart. The pile of precious bones that were used as sacrifice went up in flames and displayed their divine might. One could see how great the consumption was. An ordinary great sect wouldn't even be able to operate it. With a Hong sound, symbols filled the air. The great formation began to start up, quickly piercing through the void and forming a faint green passage of light that stretched into the distance. There were several thousand people who walked into the shining passage. They were all creatures heading for Fiend Island. Soon after, an enormous pair of bright gates appeared. They quickly reached their destination. This was traveling through the void, crossing space and traversing a tremendous amount of distance to arrive at one's destination in the shortest amount of time possible. There isn't that many people this time. Someone spoke by the bright gates. This individual stood guard here at the designated destination. A guard was stationed here to prevent accidents from happening. There were over 10,000 that came last time. What a pity it is that many who enter Fiend Island never return. An elder spoke with a sigh. This type of great formation would only be started every half-month, and it would only be used when there were at least several thousand individuals who wanted to use it, because only then would the profit make up for the costs of activating it. If they didn't do this, not even the great sects would be able to endure the losses. If one wanted to travel on their own, unless they had a world-shocking treasure, that person would have to offer up the same amount of heavenly treasures that thousands to over 10,000 people did. Shi Hao stepped out from the passageway. He raised his head and looked around. The sky was dusky, and he could feel a bit of pressure. This place didn't have any sun all year round, always covered by mists. Fiend Island, even though it had the name island, it wasn't situated in the ocean, nor was it in any normal body of water. It instead floated in the sky, never to fall. You all cannot see it from here. You need to travel through 800 li of mists before you are truly inside of the island, said a boatman. He walked up to solicit customers to ferry them there. It's just 800 li, we can just fly there. Why would we need a ferry? Someone sneered. After speaking, he stepped onto a precious artifact and took to the air, quickly leaving for the distance. As a result, everyone dispelled their hesitation and ascended the boats. They chose the safer method of approaching the island. Shi Hao did the same. He stood on the boat while carefully observing the surroundings. The mists ahead became more and more dense, and towards the end, it was hard to even see the scenery clearly. If there was no guide, it was extremely easy to get lost. This boat wasn't moving through water, but instead flying through the sky. It was refined from a very special type of material in Fiend Island. It carried lightning radiance and could travel through the air. "Yi, what is that?" Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm. In the mists 100 jong out, there was a pair of lantern-like bloody red eyes. It flickered with ice-cold radiance and was suffused with dense killing intent. This was without a doubt an enormous creature that could fly through the misty region. It stared at everyone on the boat. After entering the higher realms, under normal circumstances, he would never use the Kuan Peng technique, or any precious techniques that were so symbolic, or else he would immediately raise an uproar and have others see through his identity. 10,000 spirit diagram was something that could change the rotten into something magical. The more Shi Hao understood it, the more peaceful he felt. After reviving, he had always been studying it. We arrived. A long time later, the boat already stopped. Everyone got off the boat one after another. This was an enormous island. It was like a continent that floated in the void. It covered this area like a great dark cloud, bringing everyone a wave of ancient aura. We finally arrived. This is the legendary Fiend Island. It really is enormous after all, being at least 10,000 li in size. I can feel a mysterious energy here. This will be the training grounds for sharpening myself. My path to becoming strong starts here. A few youngsters said softly. They were all excited and nervous. Meanwhile, those that were a bit older were comparatively more reserved without speaking much. They only calmly observed their surroundings. Several dozen boats reached the shore one after another, and then several thousand people walked ashore at almost the same time, walking onto this enormous, mysterious, and dangerous island. Shi Hao noticed that there were some individuals who were extraordinary from this group. They restrained their blood energy, making them seem like dormant vicious spirits. They were definitely powerful, and should have ignited their divine flames. What? A Dao Tai? Everyone became shocked. Many people couldn't help but back up, their bodies feeling chilly. This youth was a Dao Tai, his identity was definitely not ordinary. There were several old servants around him as well. Every single one of their eyes were deep. They didn't speak a word and protected him. Dao Tai was one of the world's most powerful creatures. It could devour the world. When cultivated to the peak, they would even more so be able to devour all types of natural laws. Once their race's excellent figures matured, they would become unmatched. In the distance, someone released a snort. It was a youth that wore golden feathers. Golden radiance curled up around him, shining extremely brilliantly. Ancient Golden Luan race's youth. Someone said in a low voice. This was also a powerful race that was few in number. However, when one appeared, it would make everyone in that region break out into a cold shiver. Are you unwilling to yield? We'll meet again on the island in a bit. The Dao Tai youth laughed loudly. Let's go to the island. There were no clashes that happened in the end. Several thousand people headed towards the island together. There wasn't much vegetation here, and it was shrouded in mists all year round. The great earth was dry and hard. Enormous rocks could be seen from time to time. Fiend Island was divided into two regions. One of them was the prison region, and the other was a naturally dangerous place. Right now, they could see the prison region. It was a dark expanse. All of the constructs were formed from black gold and other types of precious materials. It was indestructible. There were also sect master characters that carved down undying formations to suppress this place. There were many powerful individuals and vicious demons locked up within. There was no lack of heavenly deities inside either. Move quickly. During that battle, the demonic sovereign seemed to have almost transcended. Heaven and earth were crushed, and even the natural laws of the immortal Tao were shackled. Rumors had it that it slaughtered a forbidden creature that had appeared inside the immortal Tao lightning. In the end, the demonic sovereign died. His flesh merged with the island, not allowing this place to break apart. In addition, the immortal lightning was guided into this place, creating many rare precious materials as a result. In addition, within the legendary dangerous area, there was an immortal tomb that appeared. It belonged to that forbidden creature. After endless years had passed, many supernatural things had happened on this island. Slaughters had broken out, and quite a few heavenly deities even fell here. As a result, this place became known as Fiend Island. Half is a prison, the other half is a dangerous place. Choose where you would like to go. After entering the island, someone came to supervise everything, informing everyone of a few circumstances they should know. Shi Hao selected Black Prison and headed in that direction. Only a few hundred people from the thousands of people chose to come here. The others all decided to go to the dangerous region, because even though that place was more dangerous, there were great natural opportunities as well. Shi Hao came, selecting the prison region, because he wanted to find information about his grandfather and learn what truly happened. He missed the venerable grandfather, who he hadn't seen for all these years. He worried for his grandfather's safety. Unexpectedly, without even investigating too deeply, he already obtained information regarding his grandfather after just coming here. The great demonic god Grandpa 15 was actually a well-known figure here. He pointed forward and said, "Do you see? Inside that ancient mine are creatures that have ignited their divine flames. There are several tens of them, all obedient and not daring to play any tricks. It is because they knew that the result of challenging authority is death." The ancient mine was quite special. It released auspicious light, clearly containing divine materials. It was one of the most precious great mines, but the curse inside of this place was even stronger. Only extremely powerful individuals could mine there. Apart from this, there was a stone mountain next to this ancient mine. On top of it hung 6 or 7 corpses, all of them eroded by the harsh weather, but a weak light still burned within them. They were all creatures that ignited their divine flames. Grandfather had broken through his shackles and successfully broke out. Is he still on this island? Shi Hao said to himself. He was extremely worried. This island was dangerous. "Everyone, this way please." Someone guided Shi Hao's group of outsiders, leading them into the mining region along an alley. There were many ancient mines here. Some had already been excavated for several tens of thousands of years, but they were still being mined. Large holes could be seen on the ground one after another. They were all numbered. Good stuff. This is divine Dao lightning, enough to startle the big figures. The prison chief exulted. He ordered someone to collect it and carefully seal it inside of a precious case. Fiend Island was under the control of several great powers, the most powerful among them being Immortal Mountain, who was able to direct everything here. It could be said that half of the resources on this island belonged to the Qin clan. If this crystal was respectfully offered up, it would definitely bring about joy and reward from the higher-ups. For experts that cultivated lightning, this type of lightning was a treasure. Shi Hao was moved. He looked at that streak of lightning and vaguely discovered some symbols hidden within. "I guess I'll stay here for a bit of time, searching for grandfather's clues and simultaneously try my luck," Shi Hao said inwardly. In the following half a month, Shi Hao entered the ancient mine and began to participate in the excavation. Only when he truly began did he understand how terrifying this island was. During this period of time, Shi Hao entered several different ancient mines and purposely approached the jailers and convicts. He obtained quite a bit of information. "Do you see that jailer? He wanted to strangle that single-armed expert to death before, but in the end, he was almost killed instead by that shackled single-armed fella." He inadvertently obtained a piece of news that made Shi Hao feel extremely nervous. His eyebrows jumped, and he almost erupted with killing intent. Someone tried to strangle his grandfather to death. This made him burn with fury. Grandpa 15 had once been in such danger, almost being harmed to death here. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.